feel like every time I turn on the news, there's some new international incident,
Right.
And today we're diving into one that's making headlines. Israel launching an airstrike in Beirut,
Yeah.
targeting Hezbollah.
Yeah. And it's not just a one-off event. This is something that
Right.
could have much broader implications.
Absolutely. This is something, we got to go back decades to really understand all the factors at play here. So before we get into the weeds, let's make sure everyone listening is on the same page.
Yeah.
Who are Hezbollah?
Well, Hezbollah emerged back in the 1980s
Okay.
during Israel's invasion of Lebanon.
Right.
They were essentially a Shiite Muslim group that came together to resist the occupation. So from the outset, their identity has been very much intertwined with opposition to Israel.
And to make things even more complex, it's not like they're just some fringe group.
Right. They're deeply embedded in Lebanese politics.
Yeah.
They actually hold seats in Lebanon's parliament.
Okay, so we're talking about a group with real political clout here, not just some sort of,
Not some militia.
Yeah, not just some militia off in the hill somewhere.
Right.
So, all right, that's really helpful context. Now, let's get into this airstrike.
Okay.
Because this wasn't just any target. Our source, ECNet News, calls it a key command center. What's the significance of that?
Hitting a command center, that's a strategic move.
Right.
It's about disrupting Hezbollah's leadership and their ability to control and coordinate, especially when you consider their arsenal.
Which, let's be honest, is pretty substantial. We're talking about thousands of rockets, some of which, if you believe the reports, can reach as far as Tel Aviv.
Exactly. So taking out a command center is a way to potentially disrupt
Right.
their ability to launch those kinds of attacks.
Yeah, so this is about sending a message,
Absolutely.
but also about crippling their ability to act, at least in the short term. It's like that old saying, cut off the head and the body will die.
Right.
Although in this case, it's a very complex body we're talking about.
It is.
And I have to imagine Hezbollah has some defenses of its own, right? What about Israel's Iron Dome? Doesn't that give them some protection?
Yeah, that's a crucial factor here. Israel developed the Iron Dome system to intercept short-range rockets, and it's been, I have to admit, pretty effective. Interception rate of over 90% in some cases. But
There's always a but.
yeah, Hezbollah, they're not stupid. They know about the Iron Dome.
Right.
They've been developing ways to try and overwhelm it.
So it's this constant back and forth.
Exactly.
Thought.
Action, reaction.
Countermeasure.
Trying to outmaneuver the other. This feels different, though, right?
It does.
This isn't just about rockets or just trying to disrupt things.
A different level.
Yeah, targeting a Hezbollah leader feels like a major, I don't know.
Escalation.
Yeah. So what message is Israel trying to send here?
I think it's a message with, multiple layers, if you will. On the one hand, it's definitely a show of force, right?
Sure.
It's a reminder that they have the capability and the will to hit,
To get them hard. Yeah, to strike deep within Hezbollah's territory.
Yeah.
But it goes beyond that.
Right.
It's not just about the rockets anymore. It's about going after the leadership, the people making the decisions.
Okay, so this is about decapitating the organization.
You could say that.
But how do you do that with a group like Hezbollah? They're so decentralized.
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
And I'm sure that's what has a lot of intelligence agencies scratching their heads right now.
Yeah, because they're going to retaliate, right? ESNet News quoted them as saying they'd retaliate.
Oh, absolutely.
But what does that even mean in this context?
That's the thing. It could mean so many things.
Right.
Hezbollah, they've shown they're not afraid to be unpredictable.
Yeah.
They could hit back with more rocket attacks. They could launch cyber attacks. There could be, God forbid, terrorist attacks on Israeli interests, even on foreign soil. You have to remember, Hezbollah's reach, it extends far beyond Lebanon's borders.
Yeah, they have networks all over the place.
Exactly.
Which is terrifying.
It is a concern.
So this isn't just some regional conflict, is it? This could easily spill over and affect, any of us.
And that's what makes it so important to understand the broader context here. But before we dive into the global implications, I do think we should circle back to Lebanon for a moment.
Of course, because they're caught right in the crosshairs here.
They are, and our source actually quoted Lebanon's president calling the airstrike and I'm quoting here, a violation of their sovereignty.
Yeah, I saw that.
So what does that mean for Lebanon, practically speaking?
Right. Besides the obvious...
Well, it puts them in an incredibly difficult position.
For sure.
I mean, on one hand, they've got Hezbollah operating within their borders, a group with a lot of influence, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, they're a sovereign nation.
Right.
They don't want to become a battleground in someone else's war.
So what do?
It's a tightrope walk, that's for sure.
Yeah. Talk about a rock and a hard place, right?
Right.
I mean, how much control can they really exercise in this situation? It's going to be frustrating. But this brings up a bigger issue for me. I mean, we keep saying this isn't just a regional problem, but what do we mean? Should we be worried about this escalating? Like, really worried?
Well, you have to remember the Middle East isn't just some isolated region, right? We're talking about a global hub for energy.
Right?
I mean, a huge amount of the world's oil.
Like 20%, something like that, right?
Yeah, something like 20% passes through the Strait of Hormuz.
Which is, what, right next door to all of this?
Exactly. And any conflict that disrupts that flow, even a little bit, forget about it.
That's going to have a ripple effect, yeah.
Oh, absolutely, globally.
So we're talking, what, like gas prices going up?
Yeah.
Supply chain issues? That's
all that.
That hits everybody.
And it's not just about the economics, right?
Huh.
You have to think about the other global players who might get dragged into this.
Right, like who?
Well, you've got the U.S., obviously. They're a major ally of Israel.
Right.
And then you've got Russia. They've got interests in the region, ties to Syria.
Yeah.
And of course, you can't forget Iran, the big supporter of Hezbollah.
So you got all these different countries, all these different alliances, and they're all...
It's a tinderbox, potentially. Yeah. And it really underscores why it's so important to look beyond just the surface level of these events. This isn't some, far-off conflict that doesn't affect us. We're all interconnected.
We are, yeah. Well, that's a sobering thought, but an important one. So before we wrap up this deep dive, let's try to bring it all together for our listeners. We started with this airstrike.
Right.
But we've uncovered all these layers of history.
Decades of conflict.
Yeah, political tension, global implications. I mean, it's a lot.
And it shows how quickly things can escalate.
Right. 1 minute you're talking about an airstrike, the next minute you're talking about, global energy crisis.
It's a chain reaction.
Yeah. So as we end, I keep thinking about this line from the EastNet news piece about the UN calling for restraint. And I have to wonder, given everything we've discussed, is that enough?
That's the big question, isn't it? And I think it's one that's going to be on all our minds in the coming days and weeks.
It certainly will. Well, on that note, we'll leave you to ponder that. This is one of those topics where we don't have easy answers.
Definitely not.
But we hope this deep dive has given you some food for thought. Until next time, keep asking those tough questions, and we'll be here to dive in with you.